opinion still stands because, like I said, I haven't been furnished any legal authority. I mean, if the town council wants to take a different position, I just want it on the record that I'm indicating what my position is. Uh, Again, which I would prefer that these be filed in county court. If that, I'm surprised the district attorney isn't taking these cases because these should be viewed as from an emergency standpoint. And because of the pandemic that's going on, I'm surprised they're taking that position of not picking up those cases and try to enforce any.
Looking over at my emails, you received an email from Erica Rosales, which is the assistant county attorney, back on April the 5th. In the order pursuant to Texas 418, is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by a fine of not more than 1,000 confinement in jail that does not exceed 100 days. Furthermore, peace officers and the office of the fire marshal are hereby authorized to enforce this order. To be clear, peace officers in the town of Antioch are authorized to enforce the order. I can get back to you tomorrow about a criminal complaint can be filed, but there's not a delay for the enforcement of the order from the town of Antioch. So the county attorney did send you guidelines on him back on April 5th.
And I did get that email, Chief, but just like the email says, as you read it, it says, and what I've said as well, is you do have the authority to cite people. You do have the authority. It just, even by her own email, her own words in her email is, I'll get back to you as to where you filed the criminal complaint. And that's the concern that I'm having, is that that complaint should be filed based on my reading of the law of the state statute. That criminal complaint should be filed in the county court, not in our municipal court. So she did answer and say what I've said, and she even went a step further and said, look, I'll get back to you as to where they filed this criminal complaint. She never did. She never got back to me. I never.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Sean?
Yeah. So, Chief, I have a question for you. I know one of the concerns has been that the town we can write a ticket that doesn't go to our town, it goes to the county. So the enforcement of this rule is hard for us to do as a town. So knowing that, do you think that you would have written more than could you have written more than 32 warnings if you and your staff weren't under the impression that this is kind of a waste of time because we can't even enforce the rule the way it's written?
Yes, I believe we would have written more, yes, sir.
Because honestly, every day I see just in my neighborhood or within the town, multiple violations of social distancing, of gathering, of stuff like that. And I'm not even trying to find it. So yeah, so my question is, in 10 days or 2 weeks, the number looks bad or low, but I think it's low because we don't have any teeth and we're filing rules that don't apply to our town, they apply to the county. And then the other thing is if I'm thinking right or wrong, tell me, if we file a whole bunch of complaints with the county and then they have to go to a county judge, somewhere along the line, some of our staff that writes these tickets is going to be out of our town over in the and
I have a question. I have several questions, Chief. But if they're Class B misdemeanors, citations won't cut it. They should be on the Class B. Don't they just get arrested automatically?
Correct.
Yeah, because a citation is a Class C misdemeanor. That's correct. what's the point if we're not being able to give out citations and they're gonna be getting arrested? How is it gonna benefit us? Or how are we gonna justify that to as far as how are we gonna get compensated? Because what Sean was asking is our officers are gonna have to go downtown to court, okay? That means we're gonna be left without officers unless if they're gonna have to be doing it under timeouts, which you're gonna have to be scheduling on those days. You understand what I'm trying to get to?
Absolutely. I absolutely understand and agree with what you're saying. I mean, we're going to be tied up at the courthouse with the officers testifying.
Counselor, if I may add something to that or interject, is I don't necessarily agree to that they're going to be tied up in county court, because right now they're handling all the cases in El Paso. They're being handled telephonically and by teleconferencing. Their officers, the chief's officers aren't going to be tied up in county court. And these types of cases should be heard relatively quick because they should be emergency cases because this is an emergency pandemic. So I don't agree with any of that assessment that these officers are going to be out of the jurisdiction and physically in county court and physically being occupied, in other words, losing all that time instead of being here in town. They could be available by phone, even by computer, even by cell phone.
I got another question. It was mentioned earlier that another law firm viewed this ordinance. Who was the law firm and how much did they charge?
Burquez Law Firm.
Who?
Burquez Law Firm.
Burquez. Okay, and how much were we charged for it, or what?
It was just, it's actually just being based on just the work right now, in helping put together some of these things as an on needed basis. Unfortunately, we've been kind of lack on some of the turnaround time, getting some of the things that we were needing done in a timely manner. So what we did is I spoke to Chief and I talked to another legal law firm, was discussing some of the issues that we were having here and some of the concerns and questions that we were having with, some of the emergency orders and stuff like that. And pretty much, with the county taking some time to get back to us, like Henry had said, we just wanted to double check and, inquire on a legal standpoint with another firm to see, where was the town's, stance on this? How was it going to affect us? How are we going to enforce it? Because like Chief said, we've been having issues since day one with, clarifying some of the minor details and stuff within this order, and then also a lot of the concerns and stuff with enforcement.
Okay, so how much was the cost?
Actually, right now they haven't even billed us yet. They, in all honesty, there's some other discussions that are taking place that we're going to be coming up and presenting to council coming up, sometime soon. But right now, it was just kind of as an as-is basis, and I think overall cost, I think, was going to be something very minimal. I think we have to get the proposal together, and we can forward it to you guys.
So, guys, the issue is basically that the police department can give out a ticket. Now, they have to go to the county.
Not on this, because it's a Class B misdemeanor.
They can't give out tickets?
No, it's a criminal offense. It needs to be an arrest, not a citation. No citations for Class A, B misdemeanors.
So they get arrested, they go to the county, and they pay their fee, pretty much, right?
They got to pay a fine or whatever is going to be
So the issue is basically we're losing those revenues when they're going out to the county, and the town wants to be able to be able to collect that money. Is that the main problem here?
I don't know, I don't know if that's what the issue is here, but I just wanted to clarify that Class B misdemeanor can't be cited. It needs to be an arrest.
Interesting.
Councilor Alfaro, I mean, assessment, I think it's short-sighted. There's a lot of banners that are talking about
Sorry, guys.
that. I think it's short-sightedness. Look at this from this aspect of lost revenue comparison to a potential. If these get filed in municipal court later, which is what I told the mayor before, and I had told the chief was my concern,
Right.
protecting the town. That's my job. And at least my review of how the statute reads and what the law is, unless I'm provided some other legal authority and I'm mistaken, which I'm welcome any legal authority at all from the county or from whoever, but nothing has been provided. So having said that, my concern is the protection of the town against a potential lawsuit, just because they filing these in municipal court for some nominal amount of revenue. So, I mean, but it's up to the town, it's up to you. If you all want to proceed down that path to recover a nominal amount of revenue and take the risk of a potential lawsuit, which may be a hell of a lot higher in terms of dollar amount, that's your call.
I think for one, it's not about revenue. We're not doing anything of this for revenue. It's just, I think, being able to see within our municipal court, that's why it's labeled as an ordinance. Now, in this entire time that we were discussing, Norma, did you have a chance to see if that ordinance was sent over to Henry? Because I think in, the 3 pages that it is, I think by now Henry could have had enough time to look through it. If he didn't get that with the original package, so he can see kind of what we're talking about. Because, I mean, ideally from what he's saying is he hasn't seen it. So, I would say, take this opportunity to take a look at it and see exactly, what the legal verbiage is. Because like I said, we're not attorneys, but we did get this drafted up through a legal law firm, ideally addressing the concerns we had with enforcement, and also, on the accountability standpoint to make sure everything was within, legal means and legally binding. So, unless you have a copy of it on its own, Norma, I would probably recommend that we just, send this over to Henry so he can look through it. Meanwhile, we can either recommend or make a motion to table the item temporarily until later on during this meeting, and we can go and move forward with addressing some of the other agenda items.
And Mayor, and if she could point out the email that she says that she sent me this in the packet, because I went through my emails and I don't find it.
Yes, sir. I could definitely show everybody was CC'd on the same email with the packet on Friday, and everybody could see there that Mr. Palomares is there. But then I forwarded him separately with the mayor, same Friday in the afternoon, at approximately 6:30. I could definitely forward you again those emails, sir.
Yes, please.
So guys, I looked too, and there was an email sent at 6:16 p.m. to Ben, me, Louie, Eddie, Joe, Henry, and Chief, and Ever. I think that was it. A 91-page agenda packet that had everything in it, including this ordinance. So I'm going to make the motion that we table this to the end of the meeting and give Henry some minutes to review, because we can do a couple of these other items here without him, and give him time to review this.
Councilor Weeks, again, you know, I can look it over, but if it's still the way it's been described, my position is not going to change.
So I'm making a motion to table this to the end of the meeting. No offense, not to be rude, but everybody got the packet on Friday. I read all 91 pages this weekend. I don't understand half this stuff in 3 and 4, but I still read it. I'm making a motion to table. If somebody wants to second, please do.
I have a motion made by Mr. Weeks. Do I have a second to table this item to the end of the meeting?
I'll go ahead and second.
Seconded by Mr. Garcia. All in favor? Okay, motion to table this item. Henry, like Sean said, it was already sent out Friday. You could do me the favor and go ahead and look through it, just so you can see, since it was sent out. That way we can move on to the other items and come back to this at a later time later on during this meeting.
Mayor,
You already resend it?
I'm going through my emails and I don't have it in my emails, Mayor. So if Ms. Gonzalez can send it again.
Yes, sir, I just did.
Okay, going on. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. We got the ordinance. Sorry, guys, give me a second. I'm going through the agenda. All right, moving on to item 9 still. Item 2, discussion, consideration, and action on recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the variance request submitted by Anthony Palms LTD for a 10-foot side setback along the Texas-New Mexico state line, part of the proposed duplex housing development known as the Anthony Palms development. Basically, Henry, if you want to chime in, and I think we also have Mark Cardenas. Norma?
Yes, sir, we do.
If you'd like, you can unmute him and see if he has anything he'd like to add to the agenda item.
Yeah, this is Mark Medina. I'm present in case you guys have any questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, did you want me to cover this item? I'm not sure if is that what you're asking?
If you just wanted to offer your legal kind of summary on it, once Mr. Cardenas finishes, if he had anything else left to.
Sure. I mean, this relates to an encroachment at 508 8th Street. There is a 10-foot utility easement.
No, this one, Henry, is the Anthony Palms.
Oh, the Anthony Palms. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the encroachment. No. No, on the Anthony Palms, Mayor, the only thing I want to report is obviously that the Planning and Zoning Commission had recommended approval of that variance. And, that's all I have to add.
Mr. Weeks, anything that you'd like to add since you now sit on the Planning and Zoning Board, and then I'll go to.
Yeah, so the main thing about this is just making the people aware of the shorter setback for the Anthony Palms, right, area. And the only the only person that was there was a neighbor that she just really didn't understand, and she was afraid that she was going to lose her house. Not that they were building a brick wall and it was going to be 10 feet from her property. And yeah, so the plan and zoning, we passed it. It was pretty simple and pretty short part of our meeting.
Yeah. Mr. Garcia,
Yes, sir.
any comments, anything you'd like to add?
No, Mr. Weeks identified all the items that we had discussed at the meeting, and I'm in favor of it.
Just so everybody knows, they did send the notices out to all the potential properties that would be near the proposed site. If they had any questions, they had an open or a public hearing to hear any concerns. And I think we only had one lady that showed up that just kind of was not fully understanding of, the impact or what was actually going to be built there, but they were able to answer her questions, and she was fine with it, and we didn't hear anything back from all the individuals that had been sent out a letter. How many did they send out in total, Ms. Gonzalez?
We had a total of approximately 35 letters are sent out. We did receive a couple of calls, for example, like 7 stating that they were going to show up to a meeting, but that one lady showed up.
And these are all residents from New Mexico or
Yes, sir.
from Texas?
New Mexico.
Right, okay.
And Eddie, too, one thing that I asked at the P&Z and then we found out was that, even though we're Texas, if it was Texas residents, there might be more of a say. What I'm trying to get at is this was more of a courtesy that we did for the people of New Mexico. That wasn't necessarily required, but we did it just so that they'd be aware.
Yeah. No, I understand. I was just worried that we might have gotten some negative feedback from Texas residents.
No, sir. And only Texas.
I'm not really about New Mexico residents. It's not, not a big deal because it's not on their property.
I don't think there are any, Norma and Ben, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think there are any Texas residential people next to this, is there?
Residential, sir, only commercial, but we didn't hear nothing back from them.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion made by Mr. Chavez, seconded by Councilman Garcia to approve the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the variance request submitted by Anthony Palms LTD for a 10-foot setback along the Texas-New Mexico state line as part of the proposed duplex housing development known as the Anthony Palms development. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 3, discussion, consideration, and action on El Paso Electric Company's application for approval of accounting treatment to allow temporary reassignment of jurisdictional energy presented by Henry Palomares.
Mayor, on this item, these are just the usual regular items we get from El Paso Electric. This one deals with them reassigning some accounting items from the Texas jurisdiction, Mexico jurisdiction. On March 16th of this year, El Paso Electric gave notice to the town that it had filed on that same day an application to approve the accounting treatment to allow a temporary reassignment of the jurisdictional energy. The filing was made to support El Paso Electric's compliance with some recent statutory changes to New Mexico's renewable portfolio standard. And so the requested temporary energy reassignment is not going to affect the long-term provision of renewable energy to Texas customers. And they do not intend to extend that beyond December of 2022. So if it's approved, it's not going to result in any reduction of renewable energy by El Paso Electric to the overall system. And EPE is currently working on providing some additional renewable resources to bring them online before December 2022. This temporary regulatory reassignment is not going to negatively impact Texas customers, nor Texas customer rates. But this notice is being filed mostly as a courtesy to the town. It's not a requirement for them to notify the town of this request for a reassignment of jurisdictional energy, but they did it as a courtesy. So I put this item on the agenda like I do for all of El Paso Electric and all, not just El Paso Electric, but all the utility filings that are done by all the utility companies, Texas Gas Service, El Paso Electric, so on and so forth. I put these on here just so that you all are aware as to what's going on. So basically they're reallocating on their accounting book some energy for some a solar facility to comply with New Mexico's recent legislative enactment. They're asking for permission from the Public Utility Commission of Texas to reassign some of that accounting treatment to New Mexico so they can comply with the recent New Mexico law. And eventually they're going to make up for that in Texas or reassign it back to Texas. But it's not, according to Paso Electric, it's not going to impact Texas customer rates. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention so you all are aware that this item was sent by El Paso Electric to the town of Anthony. That's all I have. And Mayor, no action is necessary. It's just a presentation item.
Okay. Moving on. So, item 4, it's going to be discussion, consideration, and action on a resolution suspending the proposed effective date of El Paso Electric Company's application to implement the second updated refund tariff for federal income tax rate decrease in compliance with docket number 46831, providing that the proposed refund tariff shall be approved on an interim basis during the period of suspension presented by Henry Palomares.
Mayor, Council, you all might recall that this item a few meetings back where it was brought to your attention that on an annual basis, because of a law that passed a couple of years ago, there is a refund of some taxes to utility customers resulting from a lower corporate tax rate that El Paso Electric has to pay. Every year they have to provide an update to see if that refund is going to be higher or lower. In this particular update, it's not going to change at all. So that was presented as an agenda item a few meetings back. El Paso Electric has requested that the town consider passing a resolution indicating that they're in agreement and to suspend the refund tariff, the final refund tariff, and implement an interim refund tariff, which basically the interim refund tariff is going to be the same rate as last year. In other words, the same amount of refund that's being provided to the town's utility customers is going to be provided during the interim, and it's anticipated very likely that it's probably going to result in the same final rate once it comes for final approval. So my recommendation is to pass this resolution because there's effectively not going to be any change to the refund tariff rate. The town's utility customers are going to continue to get the same refund appearing on their bill, which they get like an offset to their bill as a credit. That rate's going to still stay the same. So my recommendation, as I indicated, is to pass this resolution so we can get it to El Paso Electric and continue doing that until they get a final rate established, which again, as I indicated, is very likely going to continue to be the same rate.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mayor, are you there?
Hear me?
Okay, there.
I was saying is, motion was made by Mr. Weeks,
Sir?
or who made the motion? And who seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Weeks, seconded by Councilman Alfaro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I need a roll call, please, for this resolution. Mayor Pro Tem Weeks,
Yes.
Councilman Garcia. Councilman Garcia,
He's still muted.
Oh, yes. I got it.
Councilman Chavez,
Yes.
Councilman Alfaro.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I can hear you.
Yeah, for the record, Ben, I'm at my work, so that's not my smoke detector that needs a new battery.
All right. Moving on to item 5, discussion, consideration, and action to approve and authorize the mayor to sign an encroachment agreement for 508 8th Street in connection with a garage structure encroachment on 3.3 feet on a 10-foot utility easement granted as per filed plat running along the north side of the property, presented by Henry Palomares.
Mayor, Council, on this item, it pertains to a property that's located at 508 8th Street. That property has a garage structure that is encroaching about 3.3 feet on a 10-foot utility easement. That 10-foot utility easement can be viewed on the filed plat. And so the filed plat shows this 10-foot utility easement and then shows this based off a survey that was done by the buyer and seller on the transaction to sell that property that's pending right now. That survey showed an encroachment on that utility easement. The owner of the property is requesting that the town grant permission or a non-objection to that encroachment. And for that is obviously the value of the property would be much higher with that encroaching structure than without that encroaching structure. As part of the due diligence that we all did, when I say we all, it includes Ms. Gonzalez, Mr. Hawkes, the town inspector, Mr. Ron Roth. As part of the due diligence that we did was inquire as to whether there's any water mains, both water or wastewater running through that 10-foot utility easement. Mr. Hawkes had provided a letter based on his inspection and his knowledge of the area that there aren't any main water lines or wastewater lines running through that 10-foot utility easement. Further, as part of that due diligence, we requested that the title company, on behalf of the buyer and the sellers, provide other non-objection letters from all the other utility companies that have facilities. When I say facilities, it includes lines, electric lines, cable lines, gas lines, etc., or any other utility infrastructure, to provide a letter of non-objection. They did get a hold of all those other utility companies that, and they provided some non-objection letters. All these letters are in your packet. They've all don't have any objections. Even, for example, El Paso Electric has their overhead lines running through that 10-foot easement, but they didn't have any objection with the encroachment of that structure. Some say the same thing for some of the other utility companies. So having done all that due diligence, and in particular because the town does not have any water mains or wastewater mains running through there, my recommendation is to grant an encroachment agreement or a non-objection to the buyer on this transaction. If you all read the encroachment agreement, it specifically sets out that if in the future the town requires to utilization of that 10-foot utility easement, which may require whoever the owner is of that of the property at that time, that owner will have to remove that structure or cut it to remove the 3.3 feet of encroachment to allow the city to do its work if it becomes necessary in the future. The non-objections from the other utility companies say effectively the same thing. So I prepared an encroachment agreement. If you all have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But that encroachment agreement will protect the city and covers the city in any future use of that utility easement.
I got a question, Henry, and then I got a statement in general. The garage structure, is it a full-blown garage or is it a lean-to type thing? Is it a building or is it a shed, or when it says garage structure?
It's a whole building.
So the other reason that, because I dealt with something very similar here last month here in El Paso. Somebody's buying a resale home and they had an easement in the backyard and a portion of a cement slab and then part of a patio covered the easement. Now these are patios, these aren't structures, these aren't buildings or a house or a garage. But the lender could have had the right to not land on that house if these things like Henry and everything is doing right here was in place, and they weren't on this house, but because they were just a cement slab patio that wasn't like a building or something somebody was living in, they could go ahead and do it without. So I think part of the reason this person's doing it too is because they know if they don't, down the road, they might not be able to sell their house because they don't have things in place. That's just what I know.
I have a question about that also. Isn't that the same thing we had the problem with on this gentleman here on 4th Street and Popular with that alley? The one that we may take down, or I don't know if he already did. That fence that he had back there and that building that he had back there.
So actually, Eddie, that is a separate item that may not come up to council as an agenda item, but that is actually, that encroachment is actually currently being worked on. And the issue with that one is there is utilities going through that line. So
that's what I was asking for, because if it's the same thing, then I don't see why we would let this other gentleman. But if there's nothing going through there, I understand.
We don't have anything going through there, nor do any of the utilities. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, we're allowing and giving like a non-objection that we don't have an issue with the structure being there. But part of the agreement is stating that in case, we're keeping that utility easement, and in case we have to go in there and do something in the future, we're pretty much greenlit and we still reserve all rights. Correct, Henry?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, that's fine. I just had that one question, but that's good.
Well, the other thing is, Henry and Ben, too, with what Eddie said, isn't that alleyway issue also a part of it's not just an easement, but somebody was actually building on town property, not just on the easement. They went past, I mean, but basically they went past their property line and was building on somebody else's property.
Still a pending matter. We're looking at everything. So, but yes, you are.
And no matter what, with this thing too, say something did come up, the way easements work is when people build on easements, if something is damaged, you know, if the people come in and have to knock part of their garage down, they can do it.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is, but it's just making sure everybody's aware that they got permission to kind of be on the easement in the first place. So
That's correct, Councilor Weeks. And your assessment earlier that the lender won't lend if they don't obtain these non-objection letters, that is correct. That's one of the reasons why there's two reasons why the title company is asking. The biggest one is what you mentioned. The lender won't lend on it. And number two is the property is worth more with the structure on there than without that additional structure.
Any other questions or comments, council? Floor is open.
I'm good. Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion made by Mr. Chavez, seconded. Do I have another motion?
I'll second it.
I have a motion made by Mr. Chavez, seconded by Councilman Alfaro to go ahead and approve and authorize myself, the 508 8th Street in connection with a garage structure encroachment of 3 feet on a 10-foot utility easement granted as per filed plat running along the north side of the property. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving back to item 1 that was tabled on the discussion, consideration, and action on the ordinance by the Town Council of the Town of Anthony, Texas, in amending ordinance number 2020-028-032.
Refreshing my email throughout the times that we've been addressing these other agenda items. I must have refreshed it like 20 times, and I haven't received any email. I even checked my junk email, my spam email, and there's nothing there. It might be because the size of the packet, but I haven't gotten anything. So I don't know if Norma, Ms. Gonzalez, is getting any error emails back saying that it's undeliverable, and she may have gotten an undeliverable email back on Friday. I don't have anything, and I refreshed it like 20 times already, and I'll do it one more time.
Chief, any questions, comments?
Well, in regards to the ordinance, Mayor, I think that, like Sean was saying, our ordinance, it's gotta have teeth because you've seen what's happening in El Paso. I've seen people throwing parties and all sorts of things without really, obeying the law. And we do need something that will have teeth that we can get people to realize that we're serious about this and not let the virus spread and, basically make it worse here for our constituents. So I think it's important that we do pass something that will allow us to find people.
And like they said, it was an ordinance that they went in that's just amending the one that we did pertaining to the COVID-19. This was something that was checked and checked. I mean, if Chief is still on the line, I mean, he can vouch. We went back and forth, with, the law firm. We went back and forth with, the Judge Samaniego's office. We were back and forth looking, at, a lot of these things, not only in order to expedite, just create a little bit better flow to it, but also establish some accountability, something that is manageable by us at this moment in time. And these are all the legal amendments and recommendations that the law firm had moved forward with and recommended to us. And they checked our status as a general law municipality, what we can and cannot do. Through state statutes, through, emergency declarations and whatnot. And like I said, the reason why we went with this law firm just to get get this done is because it needed to be done in a timely manner. It was a sensitive issue that we needed to move forward with. And just like, I'm echoing, some of the comments that you gentlemen have made that, we need to have a little bit of teeth on this. And I think, in moving forward with what we're doing, I wouldn't have any doubt in my mind that we would still have the county support in moving forward with this, because like they said, with the governor's declaration in some of the cities and counties, it's very broad. But when it comes to the smaller municipalities like ourselves, to be tying up our officers with potential arrests, citations, sending all this stuff down to the main courts and stuff would just, I think it'd be a lot of back and forth, which I think some of the cities doing with some of the enforcement in regards to some of those provisions. But this was just something that we needed to do to clean it up, get some teeth on here, and manage, us being able to, maintain these and see these here in our municipal court. Basically be able to, cite and find these individuals, when they make it to court and stuff like that, versus either the Class B of, ideally having to make an arrest and stuff like that, and Chief said, even though it's been going on, I mean, El Paso this Easter weekend alone, they had over 319 complaints, and overall, I think they've had over 10,000 or 20,000 complaints. I don't know if we can clarify that, but I mean, they were talking about that in the news. So this, I think, is something that's beneficial and needed for the town, just so we can, maintain a little bit more order and just, keep things organized and efficient.
I got a question, Ben and Henry or whoever else. We don't have to wait for the county or the state to pass rules. We can pass rules, and then if they, make them their, I mean, bottom line is we can be proactive in some of this. We don't have to sit around and wait for others to do things, do we?
Correct. And the ordinance, the way it says there that in the event of any conflict between the order of the county judge and the town mayor, the order of the county judge shall prevail pursuant to section 418.108 of the Health and Safety Code. In the event of any conflict between the order of the governor of the state of Texas and the town mayor, or the provision contained in this order, the order of the governor shall prevail. So basically, it's kind of, we can't supersede.
My main thing is, and I'm just going to use an example from my home area because that's what I know, is like Kansas City. There's a Kansas City, Kansas. There's a Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri issued to stay home before the state of Missouri issued to stay home. And they could do that because they did it. My point, we have people, if you're watching the Facebook or you're watching Ben's posts, several people there, neighbor, next door app, whatever, have said, what is the town of Anthony doing? And our response this whole time has been, well, what the judge says or what the state says. My point is, we don't have to sit around and wait for those people to tell us what to do.
That's correct. I mean, with this, actually, as a matter of fact, with this ordinance, the ordinance that the county judge set up does not identify that businesses have to do half the capacity. So on this ordinance that drafted up, we put on there that that we will regulate, or we'll ask the businesses that they have to regulate half the capacity of inside the store. Right now, it only says about the parking lot, but nothing about half the stores. There's stores in El Paso that are already doing that. They're governing themselves to say, okay, we're only going to do half capacity, but that's because they're doing it because they want it. It's not because it's on the, but on ours, it would be on our city ordinance.
And that's
Right, because like one of the things I didn't talk to Peter about, but asked him about, never got an answer, is, you know, in El Paso, they want people not to be at the stores, but like they are, but they don't want to be the ones to tell people not to go to the stores like they are. So they're putting it upon the stores. They're being reactive and not proactive. So like I said, what I'm trying to say here, guys, is we can actually do some things and not just have to sit around and wait for other people to tell us what to do.
Councilor Weeks, I disagree with that assessment because the authority upon which you can pass these ordinances that deal with this emergency pandemic public health issue, it derives from that particular state statute that I referenced earlier that imposes an express punishment range. So you're still relegated back to that same punishment range. Now, you can, like you said, you can be proactive and pass ordinances that derive from that state statute. Yes, you can. You don't have to wait for the city of El Paso or the county of El Paso to do that. You can still pass it, but you're relegated to passing it through that state statute, which imposes that punishment range. And that brings me back to the same point, is yes, you can pass these ordinances, and yes, you have. The ordinances that you all passed before this one that was drafted, you guys imposed and passed laws like that. The question here is, where can you file that criminal complaint? The county has not answered that yet. The chief brought up the email from that county attorney, and she said, let me get back to you on it. That's the question here is, the question is not whether you can or can't pass an ordinance. The question is, where do you file criminal complaint for a violation of that ordinance? And
best in this ordinance, Henry, is we're identifying that it is our municipal courts where we'll be filing these complaints or issuing the citations.
But Mayor, with all due respect, that doesn't get you around from the state statute that imposes a particular sentence.
So in theory, Henry, let me ask you, in theory, and we ultimately, with everything else, like when we file criminal charges for anything else, there's one criminal charge we can do, or we can stack up the charges, correct? So in theory, we can actually file a criminal complaint with the county court for violation of emergency order. And if we pass this ordinance, we can file a citation for violation of an ordinance. Kind of like on the truck route. We have ordinance, right? So we can for off truck route and the disregard official traffic control device. That affects the license. Ordinance. In theory, can't we do the same if we would choose to do so?
Chief, again, it takes you back to that state statute, and because this whole pandemic and all the emergency measures that have been implemented have derived from that state statute that imposes that sentence. You're trying to find a way around that. And my advice to you all is, I don't think it's worth the risk.
Let me ask this question. We're going around I'm not going to say this one, but any class B misdemeanor, AB misdemeanor, where do they get filed? We don't hear assault charges, DWIs, or anything like that here in our court, right?
That's correct. It has to be filed at the main court.
So,
Yeah, but
is there any legal way that we could go around them and do what the chief said? I mean, is there anything that we can look at to maybe get that in place so we could actually do that citation and do the criminal complaint?
in my opinion, no, because the municipal court's jurisdiction is limited by state statute. Again, I think they're trying to find a way around it, Counselor. And I don't think it's worth the risk. You know, I think they should clear that up with the county, have these filed in county court, and that way you have no risk.
Because, for instance, if we do this, if we do approve this and we do actually go with this ordinance, what are the consequences that we are looking at if anything arrives?
You could face a potential lawsuit for violating people's legal rights by filing this in municipal court, and it was an improper jurisdictional court to file it in. I mean, so you can face a lawsuit on that. And again, why would you do that for for a nominal amount of revenue or whatever the case is? I think this should be addressed with the county and wait for a response from that county attorney, or have the mayor try and push that with the county, and so we can get a response. But I don't see why those things shouldn't be filed over there.
Henry, if we had a law firm draft this, I mean, don't the attorneys look at the law based on ordinances and stuff that they're drafting? I mean, why would a legal law firm, in my opinion, draft up and put this together if there's potential for us for a lawsuit? I mean,
well, they can, Mayor. They could draft it for you like they did. They can try and how can I say, try to extend the law, but it carries some risk. I mean, but again, I'm not going to support this. If you feel comfortable with that law firm and that they're the ones, you want to go with their opinion, that's up to you. If you want to expose the town, that's up to you all by following that. I'm telling you that the way you cannot have any legal risk at all is by filing with the county.
but that's your legal opinion, right? Legal attorneys can basically have their own, agree or disagree on a legal opinion.
Absolutely, people can agree and disagree. There could be an attorney. Apparently, there is this law firm that sees it differently. But again, seeing it differently, it just gives you a different degree of risk.
Hey, Mayor,
My opinion gives you risk.
Yes, Chief.
what was it that that attorney sent you when she gave you those tools with the county judge and with the ordinance?
What was her name?
Alessandra?
Okay, let me see. Give me 1 second. Sorry, so it says, on the one where it's amending the regulations, or
I believe it's, you asked the question if you can just sign it.
so basically on the going off to the start of the entire conversation where it was if the town continues to adopt its own.
Does your question, can it be ordered and out into play under emergency declaration, or do you have to do the council meeting and have it approved by all council members? And I believe she answered the instance, you would have to have the ordinance adopted by a majority of the council. It does impose the enforcement and penalty within the town's municipal court. An order by you that would fall under the emergency declaration would be suitable for penalty if you were still looking to have the enforcement done at the county level instead.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was looking at that one, but I was just seeing if I would be able to,
I think that falls in line with what Henry was saying as far as filing with the county if we were doing it under the emergency declaration. But at this time, according to what they're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they're saying that since we're doing as an ordinance for something different, right or wrong, or am I reading it wrong?
Chief, the even under the ordinance that was passed, the one prior to this proposed amendment, you'd have to file, that's a city ordinance. You're not filing it under, it's not filing criminal charges under the judge's order. You would file under a violation of the city's ordinance, but with the county because of the punishment range.
because what she said is basically that we could redraft the order for the town in order to help with enforcement. The cases would still have to be referred to the municipal court with jurisdiction over the town, which would be Anthony's, as with most citations, even outside of COVID-19 concerns. This would mean that the consequences of prosecution would not be immediate. The town would be able to enforce the fine as a penalty within its own municipal court under its own operations and timeline. And then it says, if I can sign it if it were signed as an order, it would take let's see what else it says, to implement it. But basically, they told us, that we looked over the new county orders. We discussed it with other members, within the firm. And then also the ones, because they were adopting these for San Eli as well. And basically, it came down to if our town's officers want to enforce something that is in the county's order, but not in an ordinance, then that violation carries a jail penalty. Officers cannot write a citation for an offense that a jail penalty, and the Anthony Municipal Court would not have jurisdiction to hear that case. If the officer wants to go forward with a violation, his or her choices are to make a physical arrest or present the case to the DA as a non-arrest. Now, if the town continues on to adopt its own ordinance addressing these issues, then a violation is a misdemeanor for which the officer can give a citation and is prosecuted in the municipal court. And we looked at everything from the City of El Paso Health Authority, which, Anthony has an ILA with, I guess. We saw the orders, and then basically, in the event that the officers want to enforce something that is in the health authority's order, but not in an ordinance and not in the county order, then the enforcement mechanism for this violation is the provision in section 122.005 H&S Health and Safety Code. And enforcement of these and themselves might be a last resort because they have not so far seen how city council would go about imposing a fine for a violation of a health authority's order. So the orders would, however, be enforceable pursuant to section 122.005 Health and Safety Code, which provides that the governing body of a type A general law municipality may fine a person who fails or refuses to observe the orders and rules of the health authority. If a violation is observed and enforcement is desired, we basically work that violation, like submitting a non-arrest case to the DA, but then that is submitted to you, the chief, our firm, and then of course attorney, and then whether they go forward with coming to council as a determination to whether a fine order is imposed, and then they do education, warnings, compliance, city, but those were some of the options and stuff, and we opted to set it up with an ordinance to be adopted by our town. We can go ahead and move forward with enforcement and also being able to see it within our municipality.
Is that from the county attorney's office or the district attorney's office, or where are you reading that from?
This is from the legal law firm that's looking at the recent county orders, the city orders, and basically, you know, what the state statutes and all that, because San Eli is having the same problem and they're having to adopt it, you know, to their specific town or city's needs in order, you know, to help with the enforcement and also to be able to oversee or if the citations are issued, to be able to see them or oversee them within their municipal court. So, I mean, it's a touchy thing. Bottom line, guys, you know, I'm gonna be straight up. It's been a lot of back and forth between all attorneys, between the county, between everything. We couldn't get feedback back from the county. We couldn't, you know, at times, you know, get Henry on because he, you know, at that point he had other things that he was tending to. So in order to move this forward is the reason why we reached out to another legal law firm. Pretty much we needed all hands on deck and we needed an extra set of eyes, pretty much brains and everything, legal matter to help us and look at a draft in a timely manner, like I said, so we can move forward with enforcement here in the town, because ultimately what it comes down to is public health. That's the priority, you know what I mean? That's the issue that we've been having. So, you know, that is why we moved and went forward with this route. If you guys want, we can, you know, postpone the item and I'll set up a conference call tomorrow with Henry, with the legal law firm, and everything to go over this, because, you know, ideally, you know, Henry's legal stuff, I'd rather, you know, both law firms, you know, pretty much hash this out between them. And I want to find out, you know, where the legality of it is, because, you know, Henry's throwing things out. I'm not a legal attorney, you know what I mean? Second, you know, the other legal law firm put out all these things. And to me, I mean, their legal representation, you know, we're having them, basically it comes down to a matter of interpretation, right? So we're having them interpret the law best so we can understand it, in order so we can, you know, maintain and manage enforcement, look out for, number one, overall public health, and be able to, you know, get people into compliance with these orders and being able to streamline more efficiently the current process, because even the city's having a hard time with it, you know. You can see it in the news with compliance, with everything. For us, it's just like we had said in previous videos, you know, they've got a lot of square miles to cover. Here in Anthony, it's really easy for us to get people into compliance because we're a town that sits within a 4 square mile radius. You know, it's easy to get individuals, you know, and businesses like that to comply with certain orders. But, you know, we're seeing some of the loopholes and the thing that are kind of going out that we're having issues with enforcing. And, you know, even Chief said it, and we've shared it, you know, with members of the county attorney's office, is that, you know, there's even times when we don't even want to enforce nothing because it's just back and forth, you know. And that's why even the city had to kind of clarify a little bit on the essential workers and some of that verbiage in order to kind of establish a little bit more accountability. And that's all that we're trying to do here. Anything else? Any closing remarks from anybody? Any recommendations?
So, I mean, I think what we're trying to do is we're just trying to get the compliance of these individuals. And going back on Henry's question, if they were repeat individuals, yes, they were, Henry. As a matter of fact, when the order first took into effect, the judge's order took into effect, I received a message from Mayor Pro Tem Weeks saying that there was individuals off-roading off by the desert area off of Mountain Pass. This past Easter weekend, the officers had to break up a party of 12, the same individuals that were out there, so they gave them break warnings as well. So, and we're seeing this more and more and more, because word is already out there that there is no enforcement, there's no accountability for anybody doing that. We had officers went out to go break up house parties this Easter weekend, and the mayor has always called me up and said, "Hey, we have these people. I mean, all we can do is shake our head and just go over there and we just
take your finger back."
And was that over there in the New Mexico side or Texas side?
so we can't go to Mexico.
And even this discussion stuff, this stuff's taking place. I mean, the city, even Governor Abbott pointed out in a recent article and meeting he had that, you know, everywhere else among the state, they're kind of starting to see the curve flatten. And here in El Paso, he was a little bit disappointed because we're continuing to go up. As of today, I think we're at 300 cases and rising. And even Mayor Margot said that, you know what, that they're not playing around. They're going to start, you know, getting really strict with the enforcement because obviously a written warning and a little slap on the wrist for some of these people is not enough to get them to comply for the overall public health. So this is just what we're trying to do. I think, you know, the easier and the sooner that we can streamline the enforcement aspect, you know, and issue citations and where they're going to end up having to take care of this and all that, I think the faster they're going to realize that we're not messing around with this thing and that we are taking the public health issue very, very serious.
My concern is that we have an elderly, and our role and responsibility is to make sure that they're taken care of. I've gotten a couple of calls that they bum rush Dollar General when the trucks come in. Doesn't leave anything for the elderly community. They're so packed, like we're afraid even to go in there because we don't want to be exposed to the virus. That messages also coming into the station when they tell us, hey, La Feria is packed. What authority do we go in there? We can't. I mean, it gets to the point that even the county orders are contradictory, right? So they say that car washes can be open, but yet it's not essential. But yet we get orders from Joe Moody's office telling us different. Joe Moody's office telling cell phone companies that they're not essentials, and we get them saying yes they are. So again, it's just a back and forth type of thing, and like you said, compliance. You know, where do we make these people, hold these people accountable? It's hard. It's hard to do our job, and even my officers are like, well, what do we do? So we go out there and we just get laughed at. We're not getting complaints from anybody.
And let me kind of, you know, I talk to Ben almost every day about what's going on, the issues, the meetings, the multiple meetings with the judge, the mayors, everybody. And in the beginning, we're trying to close businesses down. And the rule says that these businesses aren't to be open. But then the businesses here could say, yeah, but they're all open in El Paso. Well, because El Paso wasn't enforcing. So then they start enforcing. And then we try to start enforcing, but then some of the businesses try to find loopholes or get their corporate to write letters on their letterhead saying they're essential. But guess what? The business doesn't get to determine if they're essential. The rule does. So in the last 2 weeks, it's been, I bet Ben's been on the phone 6 hours a day in the very beginning of court, for sure on this stuff, trying to figure out the rules and what's going on and all this. Everybody's trying to find the loopholes. And then all we're trying to do is say, you know, a few simple things of how many people can be in businesses and that people can get what the misdemeanor charges if they're doing these things. Because Chief, I guarantee you that group that you met on, you said Easter weekend, it was on Saturday, right? When they were the group of 12?
I showed here on Sunday.
Okay. I bet it was the same group that on Saturday was actually on the New Mexico side. And guess what, guys? Just going back to the whole thing I just said, I call 311. You know what they're saying? If you see a gathering, you call 911 or you call 311. They'll get it taken care of. No, it's not true. You call 311 and then they take your whole information and 5 minutes of your time. And then they say, okay, now we know who we need to have you call. I don't want to call anybody. I wanted to call 311 and report a violation, not spend half an hour doing this. So my point is there's so much runaround, and I get it. I get why Henry doesn't want to approve this because he hasn't seen it. But my argument to that would be we've had an agenda out since Friday night, and whether we've seen it or not, we need to start seeing these things, and we need to start being proactive. And I'm just going to say it, and I'm not trying to take anybody's side or make anybody mad. the last thing that happened when, the accidentally putting things up on the board and the employees got mad, the news came out, could have all been avoided if we would have tackled it head on the next day. It took us 6 days to get a letter to our employees about what happened with that stuff getting on social media. So where I'm getting at, guys, is I'm losing confidence. I'm losing faith. I want stuff to start getting done, not finding out at a meeting that we have agenda items. I read all 91 pages. I'm ready. Let's do something.
Councilor Weeks, to address what you just said, I got an email from Norma that she did get an email showing that it was undeliverable on Friday. And it seems to me from some of the statements you just made that you have some concerns in terms of my work performance. If that is, then I would gladly like to hear from anybody, if that's the issue, because I've gotten everything out that you all have asked. I think I only have one pending item or that is pending right now. But everything has gotten done to the best of my ability. I've done the best I could to represent this town. I'm trying to give the best advice. My job is to protect the town. If you all have a concern with that and you don't want me to be the town attorney, then please say it.
That's something that I think we'll reserve to address at a later time, Henry. I think right now, all of us here are trying to focus at the task at hand, which is, protecting overall public health, getting whenever we need to be drafted up legally up in a timely manner. I don't care who does it, whether it's you or another law firm. I just care that it gets done in a timely manner. Now, overall, yes, some of the stuff has been submitted. But overall, I think the priority in regards to, what the town needs done has kind of been put on the back burner. And it's not even just relating to the COVID-19 stuff. It's been something that's been taking place for a little bit. I'll take, blame here, 100% full responsibility in not having addressed this sooner. But in all honesty, right now, I think is not the time. I think right now we need to get focus on overall public health and enforcement, because it's our officers that need the backup in regards to them going out there and addressing these issues with these individuals, because they're the front line. It's neither you nor I that is out there addressing these groups, these parties, these people that are getting together and even potentially risking exposure to the COVID-19. So I think regardless, we need to put everything aside and make sure that we get these officers and these individuals that are on the front lines the necessary backup that they have to enforce and do their jobs efficiently and effectively. So, that's all pretty much I have to say on that. I think we've pretty much, beat this bush, pretty much to the ground. So at this point, I would like to leave it at, to whatever council wants to make whatever motion, make the motion and we'll go from there. And then, we'll take it one day at a time, as we've been doing since this whole thing started. Do I have a motion on the table? Any motion?
I'd like to motion to see if we can get Henry and the other law firm together as soon as possible, and if possible, to have another meeting, special meeting during the week. Maybe we can get it on Thursday or Friday.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Chavez, seconded by Councilman Weeks. Postpone this item for a special meeting so we can meet with the law firms and discuss the legal action. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mayor, for when would this special meeting be held?
Henry, you got time tomorrow?
The special meeting, or are you talking about
For the conference.
for the conference? I have some time tomorrow in the afternoon, I believe.
Can you look at setting something up?
Yes, sir. I'll send. What I can do is, Henry, you have Teams?
I have what?
Do you have a Teams account?
Chief, your sound is really bad. I'm not understanding you.
Okay, I'll set it up. I'll set it up either with a Teams account or with a Webex.
I only heard Webex.
I'll set it up.
All righty. Sounds good. Moving on to department reports, streets. Mr. Edward, were you in on that WebEx meeting with FM 1905?
Yes, sir, I was.
Just to give you guys all an update. That meeting was very productive. We decided on alternative plan. One of the things that was on long term, if it was pushed out to 2031, was the acquisition of right-of-way acquisition from homes, easements and everything to widen the roadways. But because of the fact that they did an overlay, which was fairly new, and the fact that we're fast tracking this for next year to actually begin with moving forward with right-of-way acquisition would take some time, potentially delay the project. And as of now, with the planning organization, we were already red flagged for compliance since we weren't meeting some of the meeting deadlines and project performance standards. So now that we're actually at 60%, we are going to move forward with setting up sidewalks on both sides, bike lanes on both sides, and setting up same two-way traffic, and then widening it out by the time they get to the KFC all the way to Wildcat. With the I-10 Go 10 project that they're doing from the New Mexico state line all the way to La Mesa or Mesa Street, that's where they're going to end up addressing the freeway and the gateway and the overpass and all that, so we don't have to worry about that. But overall project cost, we were looking at 3.5 million. But if we do it with the existing roadway that was redone, even if they do a small an overlay, they're actually looking and estimating that the project may come under $2 million. So we'll still have our bike lanes. They're going to have different things, and I posted up some of the information on there. And I think, correct, we received an email of the actual presentation that we can forward to anybody that's interested in seeing it. Overall, the project is going to move forward, and there's estimating, I think, about 6 months construction to completion, so that's not bad. We shouldn't negatively impact any businesses that are there on the main road too bad, since they're going to be keeping one lane open throughout the construction process and opening it up during non-working hours. So one of the things they do, and they did look at, is they might end up getting rid of the landscaping. But they are okay with us leaving our utilities under the sidewalk, just because of the fact that it would be a large upfront cost that is not covered by TxDOT. It's not reimbursable on the town's behalf to move some of those utilities. So they're going to go ahead and leave them where they're at, and they're going to try and relocate what they can. But for the most part, everything's going to stay as is. They're just going to be adding the sidewalks, the bike lanes, and cleaning up the entire area from, Donovan all the way up to Wildcat or the 10. So if anybody has any questions or anything like that, you guys can reach out to me. I'll forward you all the emails for that presentation. But so far, so good. I look forward to the next MPO meeting because we're going to be presenting it. And, hopefully, it continues to move forward and we get this thing figured out and done. One of the other things that we were looking at in regards to the landscaping is actually letting the town take part in that, taking charge of that. That way we can, move forward with the ideal stuff that we wanted to see out there, but also set it up, with our irrigation system, the way we want it to our specs, as it's been nothing but problems with the way the current engineers and individuals handling the landscaping set it up. And I mean, Edward can attest to that, especially. But other than that, that's it. The guys did take care of a lot of the potholes in the area. As you can see, we have kind of been limiting the amount of things that we've been doing due to the COVID-19. But basically, I mean, we'll just keep going and move it from there. I think we'll be coordinating with Everett sometime next week, Sean, if you want to still meet, to kind of look at what's been done, what needs to be addressed, and kind of reassess the way with the park like that.
Mayor, also, I'm sorry. No, we also had a meeting today with, we're doing it for the popular from 6th Street all the way down to Killwood.
Mm-hmm.
We had a meeting early today. And they're going to have for the 20th, the schedule for the 20th of April.
Go ahead and start construction?
They're going to have a meeting, sir, to grant, okay, to start.
Okay. And then one other thing, have you guys been able to look at your meters and all that stuff, anything that I need to be replaced now before, they pave the road, that way we're not tearing anything up anytime soon?
I'm sorry, I have trouble hearing you, sir.
No, that was just double checking and make sure that you guys are coordinating with
Yes, sir.
and any meters or taps or anything that you guys have to relocate or that you guys can knock that out prior to them paving. That way we're not having to tear up the road after it's been fixed.
No, yes, sir. As a matter of fact, we are taking care of everything, looking at all the taps. For example, the school has been there for more than 20 years. It's a 2-inch tap right in front of 5th Street. We're taking care of that one and replacing that one as well. And anything that comes up, is our chance to replace most of the lines and most of the taps. As a matter of fact, we are going to keep, Allied Paving is going to give us all the millings. They're going to mill the roads. So we're going to have a couple of them so we can set some up for cheap impound yard. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else? Any questions? Anything from council?
And what I was going to say earlier is, what you're telling us about FM and all the projects, and then you know all the details of the processes of which streets are next and why we can't do certain streets because of the water plans for upgrades to water and different things. So since we're on streets, I just wanted to say, there'd been a talk about us doing like a town hall with talking about all the issues that have been brought up lately, but maybe it would be good to do like 3 town halls where, like, the first one you focused on the streets and the water and all the stuff that because I saw one of the posts you did a while back, and or maybe it's next door app, but several paragraphs trying to explain to one person why we aren't doing this road and because of the water. But I think, like, with all that Ever knows and can report, maybe when we do the town halls, we could break them into specialties and start with streets and water and help people understand, well, we can't do this part of 4th Street yet because we're waiting for this grant to come in for the water, and we don't control these roads because they're part of TxDOT.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, it's always back and forth, with residents. There's times when they, want to get involved, but they don't want to see what's already been done with the information. They just kind of want to share a comment and stuff, which I always try and, do the best that I can to inform them in regards to what's going on, because a lot of time what ends up going on is just a blanket, negative statement. But if you really look at some of the things that have been done, this is something I've talked to Norma and Everett about. Here at Town Hall in itself, it gets tiring always trying to go and explain every single little thing to people. But, even during my previous, when I was first live streaming and putting my meetings together, we have all the posts on there that showed all the priority roads, everything mapped out into regards to projects and time dates and, pretty much stuff like that I think we're going to get together and just kind of have a master board here in town in the front lobby or something. That way people come and see. They can actually look at the actual maps and stuff and timelines of things that are going to be fixed and taking place, because sometimes people don't really have a clue. And I think when we try and explain sometimes things to them, I think they get confused. So it's kind of it's got to be a little slow process, and we got to kind of ease people into it. But as long as the information is here somewhere that they can look at it, or we can tell, hey, it's right here, go look at it. I mean, I think that's probably what's going to end up having to fall down to. down to. All right, anything else on streets? Moving on and moving forward to Parks and Recreation. Mr. Hawkins.
The parks, we trim all the trees and they're coming back together and they're seeing very nice and green. We're starting to fix on the irrigation. And as you know, in the Subbo field, since we have no power, we actually ran a cord for now since the parks are closed. And we ran power. So when we're thinking, we're just trenching a new line. So for now, we're watering sprinklers through just a cord. But all the parks are going, as you can see, and we're still, maintaining them. And now that they're closed, it's even better for us to actually work on them. As far as, and also, sir, I just got an email and I got the setbacks that we're looking for the lights. So I got a gentleman from Triangle Electric. So I just got them right now, as a matter of fact.
Awesome.
So good news.
I'll make sure I forward you the information on schematics because I actually found
Did you?
plans and invoices from them as I was cleaning house this weekend. So I'll forward that to you because it does have the specs and stuff and then who the individual we bought them from. That way you can follow up with them and then go from there. One thing Sean Weeks did mention to me a few days ago is if you guys can take a look at the park up in the Heights, it is getting a little bad. And then also to that entranceway, we did figure out that's technically ours at the behind the houses. We can just go out there and spray the weed stuff to get the weeds under control. I'd appreciate that very much. And then I think what we should do coming up is since everybody's kind of home, I have not heard back from we were trying to schedule spring cleanup, but it doesn't look like that's going to be happening because they don't want certain items being tossed out just to minimize any potential spread of the virus. Since in like us, we'd be picking up from every household. So I think on the side of caution, we're not going to do that anytime soon, but we should be able to put in notices in regards to the alleyways and stuff that they need to clean up their weeds. And we should get, Ron should be joining us pretty soon, but we'll probably get with Chief aside from the million other things that he's doing.
You went out, Ben. We couldn't hear you.
All I heard is that Chief is badass. That's what I heard.
Heard what Ben said. I did want to follow up to see if anything had been done regarding the cameras that were going to go on the tower and at the park, and also if anything had been done on the easements and right-of-ways for the dead end at Mountain Pass where I'm working to do that trailhead. We had mentioned this. Well, we passed the deal to spend the money for the fencing and the cameras and whatnot for the water tower and the park. And then we presented a couple months ago about the cameras. And just, have we got the cameras? And then also have we done the work at the end of Mountain Pass to figure out what we can do as far as a trailhead, or if we need to get permission from anyone.
So in regards to Sean, no, we have not got those yet because the ones we were looking at were about 5,000 or so. But remember, we were talking about, and you presented that item about those larger cameras, the more high def ones, which we felt would be more ideal for the area. And the small cameras that we were going to get, we'd still have to set up wireless and all that stuff for them. So we kind of did put a hold on those, to not necessarily invest or waste on something that might not be efficient enough for the area. So we were still kind of waiting to see what we were going to do with those larger, more professional security cams that you had presented a while back. But I remember, certain things got put on hold. And even right now with some of the right-of-ways, like for the trailheads and stuff, as you guys see with all the back and forth, Chief and I have gone and, the staff with the auditors and everything like that, we just honestly haven't had some of the time for, some of those other smaller, not to say not important, but we haven't just had enough time allotted to handle some of those things just because we've been so busy here at Town Hall addressing all these issues right now, kind of keeping all the little flare-ups down and under control. Anything else? Moving on to police and fire. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead and Chief.
So, like I mentioned, from 4/2 to 4/12, a total of 32 written warnings were issued out for violation 7. This week, La Feria and Big 8, they were closed on Sunday, so there was no issues. I did get with the manager from Dollar General. She advised that they're having a issue with people bum rushing on Saturday mornings because the stores in New Mexico, Dollar General stores in New Mexico, they have set up half capacity. So the managers,
Let me go ahead and call you.
Go for it, Chief.
I called me. I was like, okay, all right, he called me. So the managers at the Dollar General, she advised that the other Dollar Generals in New Mexico, they have the half capacity, and they're doing basically what everybody in El Paso is doing. But since we don't have it in Anthony, she asked for our assistance because she's been getting a high number of people. She said that their sales have increased dramatically. I was speaking with her, and she goes, "I thought that with this stay-at-home order, people were going to stay home and our sales would go up." Because they've actually gone up. Same thing at Walgreens. Officers went, like I said, this past weekend at La Feria and Big 8, they were closed. They did locate gatherings on 800 Isabel, 808 Lisa, and then people also at the park. So they issued to all these individuals in question. Other than that, we're trying to do the best that we can with city ordinance enforcement. We have gone and met with people that were building. I went out there and met with people on 7th Street that they're building homes. I issued them a couple of written warnings because they were not adhering to the health and safety. They weren't taking breaks within the 4 hours. They didn't have a water. They didn't have any, anything that was required by the order. So we had to address. I had to address those issues. The good thing is that Ron is readily available. So I call him up and he guides me whatever needs to be guided as far as city ordinance violation goes. Other than that, we're still busy. We were able to get on Amazon, send me an email out of all people. They sent me an email saying that we were qualified to be a COVID recipient. So we have ordered COVID supplies. I got with the mayor, we ordered about $600 worth of supplies that we are going to submit to TDM for reimbursement, and we're keeping up with the daily logs. So if anything does happen, and when it does happen, we just need to make sure that we have those logs in place and that they get ticket logs. And Norma is keeping them there in her office in a file, and we're going to submit reimbursements accordingly. I'm also actively working on a Bureau of Justice Assistant grant in order to help us out with supplies, additional overtime funding, and any other equipment that we might aside from all the.
Anything else?
One of the things that I know happens here in El Paso, and then I got confirmed at the Walgreens there in Anthony last week. And I think that's why it's important that we work to get this ordinance done about limiting people in stores or whatnot, is the lady at Walgreens told me, she said that it's the same people there every morning. So the stay-at-home says you're only supposed to leave the home to get essentials. But basically at Walgreens and Dollar General, every morning is the same 20 people trying to find toilet paper or Clorox.
Yes, correct. I went and spoke with her as well. She told me the same thing. She goes, I don't understand it. We're trying to minimize exposure. Why are people still coming out here with their families and doing all this? This is ridiculous. So yes, I agree with you. And to piggyback off of that, I had a conversation with Mr. Lara from one of the car washes. When the order came down that the car washes were not where essential that were not non-essential. I told them basically, we are keeping you to close your car wash because nothing in the order, nobody says that you guys need to close. However, it's not an essential activity. He brought up a point, very good point. One of the essential is that they have to go do laundry. So he's like, so this is a part of essential activity. So if they're here and during the time they're waiting for the clothes to come out of the dryer, washer, etc., can they wipe down their car? Can they vacuum their car? Well, my answer at that point is like, I guess because you're doing essential activities. So again, it's just we had to deal with a lot of issues, a lot of red tape, a lot of loopholes, and we're trying to do the best that we can. But again, all of us to go out there. But yeah, you're right. The social distancing is the key. People aren't adhering to it. Mr. Weeks, you're absolutely right that people are continuously going and just trying to hoard 3 rolls of toilet paper when there's no need. There's no need. And Walgreens have adjusted their hours. They're now from 9 to 9. So that helps out a little. Dollar General, the same thing. But again, nobody's limiting the amount of people that can be inside their establishment. They're not even adhering to the current judge's orders to have capacity in the parking lot. So that's another issue that we're trying to address.
All right. Anything else? Fire. Moving on to water and sewer. Ebert, are you on the line?
I'm on the line. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Going back
On the water.
When you said fire here, when you said fire, the fire marshal has been out in our area aggressively as well because they're getting several complaints also. Fire marshal called me last Saturday that in the area because they received a complaint that somebody had an impromptu home business of putting nails or a nail tech. It got to the point that she had about 20 people in her residence. So he went out to try and investigate that. So I know the fire marshal has been also out there. So just in case you see.
Moving on to water and sewer. Ebert?
Yes, sir. As far as water, we were calling a complaint on Mr. Conquit because there was supposedly another water leak on the main line that runs east to west towards the end on Washington Street towards the end of the state line. And we dug it out, but it was just water had been sitting there for, I guess, from the irrigation. But we ended up fixing one of our main breaks that we had out there, and we had the water restored. And as far as the plant, we replaced one of the pumps, and actually one of the contacts when you were out there 2 weeks ago, Mary, if you recall, one of the contacts that we had to put that chlorifier back in with no protection, so we have to run it because of the paper that we've been getting. So we finally got that one fixed. Came from Jake, JNL, the electric service, and everything running pretty smooth. And like I said, the wells, now with everybody being home, now we don't have quite a peak time. So they're turning on and off, throughout the day, so we can really tell when is our peak time right now. They're being and actually
on the post a while back, if everybody's still, and we still recommend it, wipes and paper towels and all that are not meant to be flushed down the commode. Those are causing problems and putting unnecessary strains on the plant. So we're strongly asking the public and the residents here to not be flushing the wipes and any paper towels and stuff down the commode. One of the things for us, and everyone was out there, the things that we are going to have to do, the plant coming up, just to keep up with overall maintenance and make sure that we're, minimizing overall consumption of power, and also making sure we're not so hard on the equipment when it's coming, on and off and stuff like that. Right, Ebert?
Right. As a matter of fact, last week, since we had the gentleman going out of vacation because he was having a baby, my operator in training, so I got to spend most of the week up there at the plant. And I found some probes, actually, some probes for the PO probes for the racetrack. And I was able to put one of the aerators back on automatic with a sensor. And so I want to see, it's been already a week I've been monitoring it, and I was able to drop the speed of the aerator. So that means it's going to be saving some energy, some power, making it more efficient, So you're going to see those, definitely those, energy bills drop down a little bit. Well, actually, quite a bit. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Everett. Anything else?
That's about it, sir. As a matter of fact, right now, like to say, we're focusing on the waters and the sites. We've been cleaning all the sites from the well sites and having them, Oh, yes, sir. I just remember something. As a matter of fact, I just got a text later this afternoon. And what it was is actually we're going to take another quarterly samples for the arsenic, sir. Hopefully this we'll get them back again low. So like I said, but right now, since we don't know the peaks when the people are going to be home, since they're home right now because of the COVID-19. But I have high hopes of getting low as we have, and hopefully they can take us out of the violation, sir.
Sounds good.
And
moving on to item E, courts. Ms. Gonzalez or Mr. Palomares?
Received the report from Sally, and she mentioned to me that the total revenue was 33,139.94.64 for the month of March, with 78 Class C misdemeanors and 5 city ordinance and 2 after deferral positions.
Off the top of your head, Norma, do you know what last year's revenue was?
For this, no, sir, I don't. I would have to get that for you.
Okay. When you get a chance, if you, we'll move forward from there. Anything else for courts?
No, sir. Henry, something else?
Moving on.
Virtual meeting. We have our first virtual court hearing, correct, Henry, on the 21st?
Norma.
I'm sorry?
We have our first virtual court on the 21st, correct?
Oh, yes, sir. With Judge Gardner, Sally Alfaro, and Henry Palomares joining us with the Zoom program.
Hopefully that works out. I know they're starting to do some of that with the city of El Paso. So we look forward to keeping the ball with that. Mr. Weeks, anything under finance?
Well, I think next week we have to meet with David and Norma to get a review. One thing I did notice today when the reports came out, the city of El Paso is extended the orders to May 17th. But there was another thing I think that came out yesterday or this morning about how they're cutting payroll of some of their higher ups, 1 to 5%, and also looking to lay off or furlough different employees. And I know that that's something that if this continues or keeps up, we may need to look to do for sure. If we, for instance, Wettenwald announced that they're not opening on time. And I don't know what our revenues we get from Wettenwald, but I didn't know if you had anything to say about all that.
I've had the opportunity to speak to Conan from Wet and Wild, and we're still not losing faith. We want to keep, we're still not losing hope. We want to keep in faith that, they'll open this season, but with the county's declaration saying that they made the choice to close all pools and stuff for the summer, and with them extending the declaration, I don't see that really happening anytime soon. One of the things, under finances, ladies and gentlemen, that I want everybody to keep in mind of, basically our payroll is around what, Norma, about 10,000 bi-weekly?
40?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. As of right now, I've had some thorough discussions with Cindy. I've talked to my department heads. If in fact we see closure from some of these main, sources of revenue for the town, and also if they continue to, enforce the travel bans, we used to do a lot well. Our truck stops used to do really well during the summer because everybody's traveling. But in stopping that, we're gonna see a sharp decline in overall revenue coming into town. We're already seeing it with the water. Sean made a point where he said, Dollar General, these guys have been making a lot of money. I think when I spoke to the manager from Dollar General, she said they usually make about $7,000 a day. And when the whole, COVID-19 first came out and people were, ransacking pretty much the place and buying everything up, they were seeing up to $17,000 a day in revenue, which was a big jump. But we have a lot of businesses here in town that are at limited capacity or under limited pretty much services. So we're going to be impacting our overall businesses here in town, and it sucks to see it happen. I mean, we have to do what we got to do. We can open up soon. As you guys know, Governor Abbott was looking at kind of, reducing some of the restrictions, but I don't know how soon that's going to happen with El Paso because of the fact that people aren't following the social distancing requirements and the numbers continue to go up. But being proactive, I've talked to Cindy, I've talked to our department heads, because of the fact that we have our offices closed, we talk to our water guys and, they're focusing on the water, minimizing a lot of the other overall duties that they're having to do and things in regards to the police department. We are limiting, and slowing down on the amount of hours that we're doing. And the reason why, even under administration, why I'm making forward with that call on the day-to-day activities is so we can do a small little proactive approach to cost savings. That way, as things get dire, we're shifting the finances and the overall flow here at the cost savings mode, so we're not spending a lot, and being able to proactively protect the employees' jobs. The last thing I want to do is to have to lay individuals off because of the fact that the town took a significant hit. But I think in moving forward with these proactive measures, this is something I've talked to Sean a lot about. It's going to help us provide a little bit of cushion and buy us potentially a little bit more time from something like that. That way we're able to monitor the situation, see what's happening economically in our region, how we're being impacted individually as a town, and go from there. Now, under the legal requirements, we are asking, our department heads to kind of work around the shifts and schedule individuals to up to 32 hours, at least a week, which is still keeping the employees under the full-time status, under the Department of Labor standards, and we're not negatively impacting their insurance, their benefits, or nothing, because that's what we don't want to do, right? But if, this town running as a business and needing to run as a business, if the bottom dollar is not making it, we can't continue to operate the way we do without seeing a negative impact in regards to what the turnaround is for the taxpayer. So we definitely got to keep the funds and the budget in mind, cut where we can have to, no unnecessary spending. I've already kind of talked with the staff about, and we're just kind of, working on the bare essentials on what we need to do to move forward. So we're not having to pull back or drain the budget. So we're still monitoring. We'll be looking at what the finances are. We have a meeting coming up with David, and ideally we're going to be doing our second quarterly budget report, right, Sean? So we're moving forward with that.
You guys have a time or a date in mind, Sean, Mayor?
Oh, no, you tell me what works for y'all next week. I'm kind of free.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that right now. You know, in regards to the auditor's report, guys, I mean, David, Norma, everybody, they're doing a real good job. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's coming out, you know, that we're identifying with Peña in regards to kind of more things of what was done with prior administration or staff in particular. But everything's getting fixed, and, you know, I can assure you that we're moving forward, and everything moving forward with our budget, as, you know, since came under, you know, the lead role here with this administration. We've been making sure we're enforcing and practicing. So, you know, I hopefully Peña and these guys get this done, knocked out, and they work on I think the following year's budget, and then we get everything caught back up. Other than that, for now, you know, it's going to be a little bit of crunch time, guys, but, you know, we can get back to business, because, you know, it is looking scary. There's some businesses that might not recover from this. You know, I feel bad for our local restaurants. I feel bad for some of our local bar shops and hair salons. You know, those people, that's 100% their income. You know, they're the head of the households, and those are the individuals that I think have been impacted the longest in this, aside from the bars and stuff, because they're completely closed. So, you know, support local when you can. Order takeout from our local restaurants. Let's help, you know, try and keep everybody afloat. If we get information in regards to the loans and the stuff that's coming out from the state, federal government, we'll be sharing with the businesses, posting it up online. And I mean, we just got to continue to stay at a time to make sure we move forward with this. But does anybody else have any other questions or comments on the finance?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I should have asked this earlier. Are we, the water and the police department, chief, I know you guys get, paid overtime by the grants, but, is that gonna be sufficient enough if we need them? Do you think, or would you be able to apply for more or an additional grant or something?
What we have right now is that since it was declared a national and local emergency, etc., we qualify under TDEM. So basically, even if we run out of these Garden grant money, the Border Star money, we have the funds from TDEM. So all we have to do is just the same way. We just request reimbursement from TDEM, and they reimburse us back. And what's neat about this, or lack of better terms, right, is that even exempt employees, like for example myself, Norma, if we have to activate, or we have to stay there for an extraordinary amount of time, then under TDEM, we're eligible for the overtime, and the city's eligible to get reimbursed. So that won't be an issue.
Okay. Now, my second question is the water department. If there's a major issue with I don't know, another pump going out or whatever, are we going to be able to fund those things to be able to repair them or to replace them, or?
Under those types of circumstances, Mr. Chavez, yes, right? That's why I want to try and reduce overall cost with payroll and some of those other items. That way, if something like this serious happens, we still have the funds necessary, the staff, you know, if they need overtime, they get overtime. It is what it is, right? But where we can do some cost savings, I mean, at this point, we need to be pinching pennies. And, you know, I've already talked to Norma, I've talked to Chief, I've talked to Ebert about it. You know, us as a municipality, and you know, I guess that might be some of the misconceptions that's there. But, you know, not to be kind of cold-hearted about it, but, you know, times get tough, right? And nobody here is guaranteed the 40 hours to begin with. They're under the Department of Labor, they're at least guaranteed under a full-time status the 30 to 32 hours, which right now we're trying to get at, so we can do a little bit of cost savings because of the fact for a few things. For one, last time I spoke with Norma and Ebert, we had 50 individuals that have not paid their water bills yet. You know, we're not charging the late fees. We're not charging disconnect fees. In 1 year alone, when we started implementing the $5 late fee with the help of Mr. Weeks, pushing that forward with in council, we made about what, Sean, about 10 grand, right, in 1 year? So if we're kind of averaging that on an annual basis in $5 late fees, with the summer, depending on how long this goes, by us not charging that, you could at least see maybe half of that go away. Also, with the $25 disconnects, half of that. If we have 50 individuals that have not paid their bill yet, and you're averaging them out at maybe, you know, it's probably more, but we're averaging them out at $70, and we got 50, that's $3,500 a month, you know, that we could potentially be losing out. So there's definitely already some revenue losses that we're seeing. But at this point, we got to do what we got to do to support the businesses, stay on top of enforcement and helping minimize the exposure and cut down on that curve. Because the sooner we flatten that curve, the sooner we can all get back to work. You know what I mean? And that's why I want to be really adamant about enforcement, because it matters. The long term, it matters. I mean, whether some people think it's the flu and some people think it's serious is beside the fact. The point is that the government right now is mandating and telling us that we have to stop business, limit outdoor activities and stuff, which, you know, I think is sometimes, you know, an infringement of our civil liberties and rights. But, you know, it is what it is. And we're having to deal with a bigger picture, the bigger monster. And unfortunately, I mean, we're in the trenches with this one. So we have to do what we got to do. And whatever we can do to cut costs and stay on top of this stuff, the better. I mean, I'd rather it be like that, temporary, and everybody keeps their jobs and we get back to business and start bringing in revenue. But I mean, we are seeing a significant decline. Courts on average would pull in about what, Norma, 60 to 70,000 a month. They're pulling in 33, which is half. You know, so, you know, those are the things that we're looking at. We're putting our reports together. But even more reason on why we have to kind of implement some cost saving measures and stuff here in the town. Because if you saw the article that Sean was talking about, El Paso's already looking to report a $26 million loss because of the COVID-19 and all the business. So that's a significant amount of change for them. For us, we have a $4 million budget. Even 100,000, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 can really put a serious dent in our plans. So, you know, we got to address this accordingly and just keep an eye on day by day on what's going on. Anything else? Any other comments? Mr. Garcia, Mr. Alfaro? All right, moving on to administration. That's all I had to say. Pretty much Mr. Weeks covered that in finance. We did it in streets. You know, Norma, did you ever find out who that bill was to, the people that dropped off the money?
Also, we haven't received the call yet.
So one thing, you know, for those, if we live stream it or whatnot, you know, if you talk to residents, ladies and gentlemen, who's ever putting money in the drop box, you got to put your water bill, your name, something on it that identifies the homeowner and the bill that you're paying on. Because we had somebody drop money in the drop box without anything to identify who it was. We're trying to look at the cameras to see if we can identify who that person was. But I mean, obviously somebody's not going to get their water bill paid. The good thing is we're not doing shutoffs and stuff. But I mean, come on, guys, common sense. You know, you need to identify and put some type of information that shows you paid your bill or what bill you're.
I thought we weren't doing in the Dropbox.
Yes, we are right now, Mr. Chavez. We got to take whatever we can get, as long as we tell people and we told them put it in an envelope. If the girls open it up and spray it and disinfect it before it, I don't think the bank's gonna deny a note, you know, with a little bit of alcohol on it. So I mean, it is what it is. But you know, we're taking payments, traffic payment online, call over the phone, leave it in the Dropbox. I mean, we'll do it whatever we can, as long as we're trying to maintain and minimize, you know, or implement the social distancing regulations and minimizing potential.
Okay.
All righty.
We're good.
Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Chavez, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Weeks. The meeting is adjourned at 9:04 p.m. Have a great night, everybody.
You too.
Good night.
Thank you.